Hi, the following group will be presenting a study regarding virtual reality in stroke rehabilitation.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharifa and my group members are Peihan, Fergus, Fahmi and Atika. Atika and I will be representing our group today. Our study looks at whether stroke patients prefer a serious game or a commercial game for rehabilitation. This is a user preference study and these are the objectives we'll be covering today. Many studies identify limitations in conventional stroke rehabilitation, such as the boring and monotonous nature of exercises affecting active participation and compliance rates, which are required for successful stroke rehabilitation. Meanwhile, virtual reality games, VR games, have been shown to increase the user's motivation and enjoyment. They have also been shown to be exciting and valuable tools in stroke rehabilitation. For example, a Cochrane review by 11 colleagues in 2011 gathered 7 high-quality RCTs comparing VR therapy and conventional therapy. VR therapy resulted in better arm function as compared to conventional therapy. These may be able to explain why VR gaming systems are being used more frequently in stroke rehabilitation in the recent years, resulting in an influx. This influx is supported by a Medline search done during our literature search using keywords virtual reality and stroke rehabilitation. Only 4 articles were published before the year 2000 as compared to 160 articles published between January of 2000 to April 2012. However, these VR games were mostly commercial in nature. Commercial games are created for the purpose of entertainment for the general masses. This is where it is limited in the context of stroke rehabilitation. For example, Duskadol and Fling and the colleagues highlighted that these commercial games are created for users with normal ranges of motion and are not suitable for the majority of patients recovering from stroke. This is among the many reasons for the recent introduction of serious games in the market. Serious games are games with a primary intent. For example, in this context would be the rehabilitation of stroke. But it still can be entertaining while trying to achieve that intent. Now the question is, with such considerations, will the specially designed features of these serious games be more desirable to stroke patients whom is ultimately catered for? Therefore, the aim of the study is to investigate user preference for the 2 different gaming systems, as well as the factors influencing this preference. The research hypothesis is that there's a significant difference in preference towards serious games as compared to commercial games. Next, Atika will bring you through the methods of this study.
Thank you, Sharifa. Subjects included had unilateral stroke and were medically stable. Their cognition was also intact with at least a score of 6 on the abbreviated mental test. Those unable to follow instructions and uncontrolled comorbidities, visual impairments or fixed contractions in their affected upper limb were excluded. The demographics of our subjects were as such. 20 subjects were recruited from the Society for the Physically Disabled Centres from June to December 2012. They consisted of 8 men and 12 women with a mean age of 55.6 years, of which 13 had left hemiplegia and 7 on the right. As shown in the flowchart, 20 subjects were exposed to 2 different games for a period of 15 minutes per game system in no particular order. The 2 game systems chosen were Wii for the commercial game system and AbleX for the stroke-specific serious game. For the Wii, we chose games that were similar in nature to that of AbleX in order to be as fair as possible for our questionnaire-based study. This was followed by the administration of a questionnaire which evaluated their preference between these 2 games. Of the 20 subjects recruited, none of our subjects withdrew from the study. The questionnaire was self-designed. Content validity was ensured through the usage of variables shown to be associated with satisfaction and user preference in gaming in the literature. The questionnaire was also refined based on a pilot study carried out on 3 subjects and based on recommendations by experienced therapists in the field, hence ensuring face validity as well. The 4 main variables used for the questionnaire were game appeal, game motivation, game challenge, and how eye-catching the games were. There are factors that made up each variable based on literature search done. For example, what made the game appealing could be its sound, its speed, its images, or its score, and they will be further elaborated later on. Basically, the questionnaire has two sections, one for the commercial game and another for the serious game. On your left is a sample of how the commercial game section looks like, and on your right, the serious game section. The same set of questions was posed in both sections for these variables mentioned. For example, the first question posed was whether the patient found the game appealing and to rate it accordingly from 0 to 10. These will allow an unbiased comparison of both of the game systems. In the next segment, I'll be presenting to you the main results of our study. Our study showed that there was a significant difference in user preference. We wanted to find out which of these four variables mentioned caused this significant difference. The variables were compared across two systems. For example, the variable of appeal in a commercial game was compared to the variable of appeal in the serious game. The Wilcoxon sign rank test was utilized. The variables appeal and motivation showed a statistical significant difference with a p-value of less than 0.05. This significant difference in user preference is attributed to many factors, but the most significant ones are game speed and positive feedback. At the end of the questionnaire to determine user preference, this question was posed. If given a choice to include either the serious game or the commercial game within your therapy session or to be done at home, which would you prefer? 60% of our subjects preferred the serious game system as compared to the commercial game system. 15% of our subjects, on the other hand, had no preference to either systems. Based on this, the research hypothesis is accepted. In other words, there is a significant difference in preference towards serious games as compared to commercial games. From the main results, we derive the flow of our discussion, and Sharifah will take you through.
Thank you, Atika. As mentioned earlier, the two main variables found to be significantly in favor of the serious games are game appeal and game motivation. This is in accordance to several other studies, which have proposed that the levels of appeal and motivation are important in defining success in rehabilitation interventions which utilizes VR. As mentioned earlier, the most significant reason for the higher rating of the serious game was due to speed and positive feedback. The serious game system, which is the AbleX, was specially designed to detect and automatically adjust the speed and difficulty levels during gameplay. In other words, the difficulty level is altered during gameplay depending on the ability of the user to cope with the game progression. The commercial game, on the other hand, does not slow down or increase its speed for the user. Most of the users found this commercial game to be far too challenging and demanding than what they could cope with. Flores and colleagues found that speed adaptability to be an essential feature, and our study has demonstrated as such. With appropriate difficulty level, the user can participate at their own pace and continue to remain engaged in the game. Aims of rehabilitation can therefore be achieved without omitting the game experience of the user. This feature should be considered as a basis in selecting VR games for the stroke population. Positive feedback was found to be the most significant factor that led to the increased motivation in the serious game. We explored the feedback provided by both systems and found that the commercial game system had more negative feedback, with words such as you lose and game over, whereas the serious game had relatively more positive feedback, with words such as your score or finish game. Several articles identified positive feedback as a strong predictor in exercise motivation and compliance, and they certainly contended with our main findings. One limitation faced was that to date there have been no studies done to compare between the user preferences of the two games. Hence, there was no gold standard to base the study's questionnaire on. However, to the best of our efforts, a questionnaire was designed and tailored with both content and face validity to suit this study. Another limitation was that this user preference study may not be the best representation of the entire stroke population. Stroke is more prevalent among the elderly, and 3/4 of the stroke patients are more than the age of 65 years old. However, in this study subjects consisted of younger population patients with a mean age of 55.6. This limitation can be addressed by using a larger study group. From the results, it shows that majority of the subjects are receptive to serious games. This prompts future studies to evaluate the effectiveness of serious games by using psychometrically sound outcome measures. Therapists and game designers should work together to collaborate their ideas so as to design more of these condition-specific serious games. Serious games have a promising future in stroke rehabilitation. Through a pilot study, we now know that there is interest in the potential marketability of these games. We hope that this study will be useful in convincing therapists to include serious games in their stroke rehabilitation plans, and also hope that game developers will find it meaningful to continue developing such games for this particular population, bringing stroke rehabilitation to a whole new level. We've come to the end of our presentation, and we'd like to thank the following people. Thank you.